Good morning, Indiana. I am Brian Getz.
And I'm Anthony Green, here for ESN 365 on Channel 9.
One of the most debated about issues at the moment is whether President Obama should allow the United States to get involved militarily in Syria.
Pro-democratic protests exploded in March 2011 in Kaehr after local teenagers got arrested and tortured for expressing their beliefs on a local school wall.
This triggered somewhat of a war, as those for and against President Assad would battle for power. Hundreds of thousands have been killed as a result of this conflict. Here's Brandon live from Syria to report on the issue. We believe that the United States should not get involved militarily in Syria because it is not our war to fight. The United States is very low on funds right now, and the intrusion of the United States could start another world war.
You're right, Brian. The incident with the teenagers somewhat kicked off the conflict in Syria with the soon upbringing of protests. To begin with, about the Syria crisis, there are three main topics to understand. The Syrian conflict started in a nutshell because of the Civil War, Cold War, and Holy War. The Civil War is a struggle between the rebel Sunnis against a loyalist group of Shiites. Second, the Cold War that has started involves much of the world's powers, including the US, European countries, Russia, and China. The US and European countries support the rebels while Russia and China take the side of the government. Lastly, the Holy War, that includes countries supplying Syria with weapons, also instigated problems. Moscow, Iran, and Iraq all contribute to supplying the Syrian government with military supplies because of their similar religious backgrounds as Shiites. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, supports Sunni advocates in Syria by also supplying them with military tools. These three different wars have escalated and have made the crisis even more severe. Now back to you, Brian and Anthony.
Thank you for your insight, Brandon.
A very helpful thing to know.
Now to our expert on the topic, Kaehr, to discuss what he feels should be done on the Syrian conflict.
With the crisis in the Middle East, one big question remains. Should the U.S. intervene to help the rebels or not intervene at all? This is not a question of whether or not to intervene by helping the government or the rebels due to the fact that the government gassed innocent civilians in Damascus on August 21st. In the past, the U.S. has decided not to intervene with the whole Syrian conflict when Saddam Hussein used chemical gases in Halabja in 1988. Currently, President Obama has discussed the possibility of a diplomatic solution in Syria, according to the White House. The ESN differs from the intervention of the Syrian rebel crisis, believing it is unneeded. More than just the U.S. is involved in the whole Syrian conflict. This propaganda shows President Obama standing with multiple other countries' flags behind him. The fact that he is pictured saying that we only tolerate our own shows sarcasm in the fact that we are too worried about everyone believing in our cause. Money should be a huge issue, and considering the U.S. is in debt and in large amounts, maybe a war is not the best at this time. The fact is that this war is something the U.S. doesn't need to be involved in, especially with the current conflicts going on right now. This graph pictures whether or not the U.S. should get involved in Syria, as well as European nations. Supporters of the United States military intervention may say, "How many Syrians must die before we come and help?" or "What happened to supporting democracy?" Even though this may be true, this is not the United States battle to fight. Even then, other countries like Iran have threatened that if the United States chooses to intrude, they will start attacking as well in favor of Assad. That means that the United States military intrusion could cause something huge. This battle is not directly affecting the United States, so it makes us want to go into Syria. Is it the earlier mentioned white man's burden? The United States must be worried about issues that are affecting their people, not the others right now.
Thank you, Nick.
Should the United States take military action in Syria? Take our poll displayed below.
After this commercial break, here on ESN, we will discuss the most recent episode of AMC's The Walking Dead and how it all relates back to William Golding's The Lord of the Flies.